The first time in history, a former president's been arraigned and charged in a federal court. The 37 charges, which we've gone through, the 31 relate to the retention of the documents. The other 6 are obstruction or trying to keep documents from a return, moving documents, and even a conspiracy charge in there. So serious charges. I think that some people are being criticized for going on TV and saying they're serious charges. They would be against anyone normal. I think in this case, they look so politically charged that it is almost hard to take it serious. But we should.
There are 37 charges. 32 of them, I think, are easily disposed of, in my view as a defense lawyer. 5 of them you got to defend, including that conspiracy charge with Walt Nada, the moving of the documents. The issue then becomes, if you were just convicted on one of those 5, it could be a 20-year sentence.
One move here that is starting to get a lot of attention, Dad, is the fact that this case isn't going to be in Washington, D.C. or New York. It's going to be in Miami, and it's going to be in front of, right now, it was a random choice, but the random choice chose a Trump nominee.
And that is not a basis for recusing this judge, by the way. And I argued one of the seminal recusal cases in the country in the U.S. Court of Appeals for the 10th Circuit almost 30 years ago, Judge Patrick Kelly, who I did get recused from a case involving Operation Rescue. But it was because of that perceived statements of bias. Not I disagree with their opinions. Not they were appointed by a Democrat and my clients are conservative Republicans. That has nothing to do with it. That's not a basis upon which you can recuse someone.
The identity of the president who appointed the judge assigned to a case has no bearing on recusal. 0. So you can't even start there with recusal. That's out of a different district in Florida, but they would rely on those and that's the basis for recusal, is that you don't just get to recuse them because you don't like who appointed them.
The only condition on release that the magistrate judge put in place is that the president cannot discuss the case with witnesses, because a lot of those witnesses still work for him or are part of his security detail, so he can't discuss the case with them. Now, having said that, that will be one of a series of motions, I suspect. I mean, I don't know this for sure, but I suspect it will be one of a series of motions that are made here so that all of these pretrial motions are made, and it determines then the parameters of the actual trial itself, including evidence, exclusions of evidence, and these issues. There's a lot of that to come ahead. The problem is when you control the lever of the executive branch of government under Article 2, that Department of Justice works for Joe Biden. This was a Biden administration prosecution. Don't kid yourself for a moment.
That's why I keep saying Joe Biden has okayed putting his number one political opponent, as the polls show right now. That doesn't matter who you're supporting. That's what the polls show. This would be the person he would run against if the Republican primary was held today, in prison for the rest of his life. The only more serious you could go is execution. But this is in prison for the rest of your life. It's pretty close. It's a death sentence behind bars. And that's what this DOJ okayed. And if they get away with this, folks, which they've been trying to do against grassroots Americans, who's next on the list? Is it a senator that you like who might be a rising star, a governor like a Bob McDonnell, who they try to, again, not just destroy, but put behind bars so they can never come back, so they can never tell that story? And then what happens to your country? What happens?
You look like Venezuela and Argentina and all the third world
countries. You look like
countries.
The country that all those people who were at Cafe Versailles yesterday in Miami fled.
Exactly right.
And that's why they, even if they don't even vote for President Trump at the end of the day, have such a disdain for using the levers of power of government to go after political opponents. It's actually the sign of the weakest countries in the world.
When we start looking like Venezuela and third world governments, where you just go after your political opponents, and there's a reason we have not done that. There's a reason that no former president has been arrested, and there were some heated disagreements and accusations of criminality because we didn't go there. It was like we crossed this Rubicon here to just let us be like everybody else, and everybody says, well, no one's above the law, and that is true, but the law has to be interpreted, and the law has to be applied equally.
I think if this got all the way to the Supreme Court, they'd go, this whole process was for the President of the United States.
There's a doctrine that's called void for vagueness.
Yeah.
You cannot criminally prosecute someone under a law that is so vague it's subject to multiple interpretations, especially when you have to have a criminal intent. Mens rea is what it's called. When you have a criminal case, there's 2 aspects. There's the mens rea, the mental intent, the actus rea, which is the actual act. So here he's former president's not charged with destroying documents, not charged with unlawful dissemination of the documents, possession of the documents. We're going to put a former president of the United States in jail on a law that is vague at best, okay? Maybe unconstitutional at worst, depending on how you look at it and how it was applied. But there are what's called as-applied challenges here. And we're going to politicize and criminalize a political opponent.
And he never had a chance to go to court to say, no, I believe this document is mine. We deal with the reality of the situation presented. The reality is President Trump was indicted yesterday and arraigned in a federal court on 37 major counts that could put him away for life. It's wrong. It's not how our country should operate. We've got to fight back, and you got to have the facts to fight back. You're getting them here on the broadcast.